everyone, Laurie Spencer here. Welcome back to this History Book Club reading of The Kennedys After Camelot by New York Times bestselling author J. Randy Taraborelli. Please do take a moment to like the video before we get started, subscribe to my channel, and if you want to catch up on any of the previous episodes you might have missed in this series, I will drop a link to the full playlist down in the description where you can listen to every episode back to back. And if you'd like to support all my hard work bringing you these book clubs, check out my wish list at giftapp.com/reallaurie-spencer, where you can select a book that you'd like me to consider for a future book club reading. And if you are a Kennedy fan, you'll find lots of great Kennedy family history books on my wish list for you to choose from. You can also follow me at Real Laurie Spencer on X, Facebook, Rumble, and Substack. You can become a monthly supporter on Patreon or just make a quick one-time donation on Buy Me a Coffee if you enjoy these book clubs and just want to say thanks. J. Randy Taraborelli's latest book, called Jackie, Public, Private, Secret, is also a fantastic read, and I just want to give it a plug. You should definitely check that one out. He has become one of the real trusted experts on her life, so I think his telling of events here is actually pretty accurate. We will explore in this chapter also the formative years of her children, JFK Jr. and Caroline Kennedy, when they were growing up, their struggles with being shadowed by Secret Service agents everywhere they went, while just trying to live a somewhat normal life and adjust to living with their new stepfather, while always being constantly reminded in the media that their real father was now a national martyr. Also, this chapter intersects with JFK's sister Patricia, who married the actor Peter Lawford, the hard-drinking party animal and member of Frank Sinatra's Rat Pack. And then, shockingly, she actually divorced Peter Lawford, becoming the first Kennedy to ever get a divorce, which was, of course, very controversial at the time. So this chapter is really about two famous failed Kennedy marriages, and it's fascinating to see how these two stories intersect with Jackie as the pivot point. And I should mention, I'm recording this during a pretty wicked thunderstorm. So don't be alarmed if you hear some booms of thunder and some rain sounds in the background, which might actually make for a perfect oral backdrop to the story of two stormy love affairs. And hopefully the power will stay on long enough for me to finish this chapter. So let's get started. So if you're reading along with me in the hardcover edition of After Camelot, we're going to go in today reading on page 132, part 6, Jackie, Ari, and the Lawfords. By 1970, Jackie had comfortably settled into her marriage with Aristotle Onassis, despite an avalanche of public opinion about it. Onassis was a squat, gray-haired man, almost in his 70s, with a large nose and slumping figure. He wasn't exactly the kind of man that most Americans, indeed most of the world, thought the Queen of Camelot should end up with, after having been with the dashing President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. There had been an immediate and perhaps not surprising reaction to Jackie's marriage, and it wasn't positive. In fact, it was one of total outrage. Perhaps the headline from the Stockholm Express said it best for many people: "Jackie, how could you?" Though the relationship did have certain limitations, there were none that couldn't be accepted by both parties. For instance, Onassis, despite being exposed to Greek art and architecture while attending private schools, actually took very little interest in the arts and classical music, concerts, the theater, or in any kind of culture other than Greek mythology. Jackie knew she was going to have to live with it because she would never be able to change him. There were plenty of men eager to accompany her to art galleries and plays anyway. While she thoroughly enjoyed visiting Greece, she never really made friends there and never felt at home. She was never a big fan of the yacht Christina either, finding its decor overdone and gauche. She also disliked most of Ari's private homes. It's rather like a big motel, don't you think? She had observed of his prized villa. On Scorpios, his private island, was, in her view, it was lovely, but far too removed from civilization. Of course, I cherish my privacy, she told her brother-in-law, Stephen Smith, but that's too much isolation, even for me. When he and Jackie first married, Ari had told her he wanted to spend $4 million building an exact replica of the legendary palace of King Minos as a home for her. "Oh, please don't do that," she begged him. "I'll never want to be there, and what a waste of money that would be." New York was home to Jackie. Therefore, she and Onassis would spend a great deal of time apart. In their first year of marriage, they spent a total of 140 days away from each other. However, they seemed quite content during the other 225 days. Jackie is a little bird that needs its freedom as well as its security, Onassis famously said at the time, and she gets both from me. She can do exactly as she pleases. She can visit international fashion shows and travel and go out with friends to the theater or any place. And I, of course, will do exactly as I please. I never question her, and she never questions me. Secret Service agent Jack Walsh recalled meeting Aristotle Onassis in the lobby of Jackie's Manhattan apartment building one day. He refused to go up unless he was first announced, Walsh recalled. He said, "I never surprise a lady, especially a lady like Mrs. Onassis." So I would call up and announce him, and Mrs. Onassis would always say, "Of course, send him up, Mr. Walsh. He is my husband, after all." Later she said to me, "Honestly, Mr. Walsh, must you announce Mr. Onassis each and every time? I'm sure that makes him feel quite badly." And when I told her it was always at his very specific direction, she was surprised. "Oh, he's such a dear man for not wanting to invade my privacy," she said. He would always have a gift for her, too. Once he showed up with a box and he opened it for me before he went up in the elevator. And in it was a diamond necklace that was about the biggest I had ever seen, said Jack Walsh. "Do you think she will like it?" he asked me. "Oh, yes, sir," I said. I suspect she will." He smiled and said, "Do you know how much this thing cost?" Of course, I did not. He said, $1 million, but worth every penny for my queen. Every time he took her out for a meal, he would hide some little bauble in a napkin worth likely hundreds of thousands of dollars, reported a friend of Jackie's. She would say, "Ari, enough. You don't have to get me a gift with every meal." He would laugh and say, "Oh, yes, I do, my dear. You deserve it." He worshipped the ground she walked on, and from what I could see, she loved him very much, too. The idea of costly trinkets as bribes, or maybe to assuage one's guilt, was also one that was practiced by Joseph Kennedy Sr. As JFK was fond of saying, every time Dad had another affair, he would pin another diamond brooch on Mother's dress. Jackie's cousin, John Davis, recalls, quote, "She was truly happy, even though a lot of people did not want to believe that. She became more outgoing, more accessible. As far as I was concerned, marrying Onassis was one of the best things that ever could have happened to her. He was so much fun, so unpredictable. He did her a world of good." She told me, "I never thought I would get over what happened to Jack in Dallas. Every day was joyless for me. I felt hopeless, and if not for the kids, I would not have been able to go on. But Ari has made me feel that life is beautiful and should be enjoyed. He has filled my dark world with nothing but light." While it wasn't always easy for some of her family members and associates to accept that Jackie had remarried, the family matriarch, Rose, certainly had no reservations about Onassis. Jackie had invited Rose to celebrate New Year's Eve, 1969, with her, Ari, John, and Caroline, and it turned out to be a wonderful holiday for everyone in Greece. Rose later said she found Ari to be somewhat coarse, pretty much what she'd expected. Though he was brash, she liked his directness and found it refreshing, if also a little unnerving. After all, Kennedy men never said what they meant. or at least that had been her experience with her husband. Onassis was also extravagant. He liked to spend money and had plenty of it. Rose didn't see anything wrong with that either, as long as it wasn't Kennedy money, observed Sancy Newman. Although he was about 15 years younger than Rose, it felt as if she and Onassis were of the same generation, and they really did have a lot to talk about. For the Easter holiday in 1969, Jackie invited Rose to set sail for 2 weeks with her and Onassis and the children in the Caribbean. The only problem that Rose had with Onassis on that particular cruise occurred when she became seasick. While she was sound asleep, Onassis slipped into her stateroom just to check on her and make sure she was okay. While he later told her about it, she was shocked. She was taken aback. From that point on, she made sure her door was locked. Well, that gaffe aside, she enjoyed Ari's hospitality, and it also gave her an opportunity to spend some quality time with her former daughter-in-law. The problem was that every time Rose looked at Onassis, she couldn't help but remember why he was in their lives, and it was because Jack wasn't, said Sancy Newman. Jackie couldn't help but sense Rose's sadness, which caused her to fall deep into despair as well. On May 21st, 1969, Jackie took Rose to see the Broadway show 40 Carats at the Morosco Theater, starring Julie Harris, who won a Tony for her work in the show. Accompanying them was the noted architect Edward Larrabee Barnes. They had a fun time at the show, according to what he remembered many years later. Afterwards, with everyone in a jolly mood, they decided to continue the night and enjoy a late-night dinner at Sardi's. Jackie and Rose got along as if they were the best of friends. Over the meal, Jackie talked about her new life and how lucky she was to have it. "I suppose it would surprise some people, but I am very grateful for my life," Jackie told Rose, according to Barnes's memory. Jackie said that she believed she should now make the best of each day. "I've taken such a big bite out of life, and I don't take any of it for granted," she said, sounding very upbeat. She added that she didn't want to one day look back on this time and feel that she had missed out on any of it, that she hadn't thoroughly enjoyed it. Rose smiled and said it was nice to hear Jackie talk like that. "After Jack died," she said, "I didn't think I would ever see you smile again." Jackie then said that Aristotle Onassis had given her and the children an amazing lifestyle, more than I ever could have imagined, she said. However, she also said that she wanted to make one thing clear. "Ed and I have already discussed this, so I feel free to talk in front of him," she allowed, looking at the architect. Then she told Rose, "I want you to know that I would never allow Ari to legally adopt John and Caroline." Jackie added that if anything were to ever happen to her, she wanted both children to be raised as Kennedys. Quote, "It was in my will, as you know, that Teddy and Joan should get the children if Jack and I died," she said. "But I think they have enough problems now. However, I would still want the kids to be raised Kennedys." Suddenly, the mood seemed to shift. Both Jackie and Rose became quite sad very quickly. Rose said that she had hoped Jackie felt as she did, but I dared not ask. At that, Jackie's eyes welled up with tears. "Just sitting here talking to you about this," she said to Rose, "is so hard." She then took a deep breath, got up, and without saying a word, swept off in the direction of the ladies' room. Ed later called it a very dramatic exit, calling to mind what William Manchester had recently written of Jackie. Quote, "My first impression of her, and it has never changed, is that I was in the presence of a very great tragic actress." When Jackie excused herself, Rose and I had a few words about Aristotle Onassis, Edward Larrabee Barnes recalled. She said that her daughter Eunice really disliked Onassis, but that she thought Eunice's opinion was unfair since she had never actually even met Onassis. Her mind was made up, though, she said. "Personally, I like him," she told me. "True, he's not Jack, but really, who is?" As she sipped her mint julep, She also said that she was the one who first told Jackie to marry Onassis. She said that back when Jackie first brought Onassis to the Cape, she came to Rose as if she was her daughter and asked what she should do. Rose told her, "Jackie, I think you should marry him. Be happy. That's what Jack would want." Then she said to me, "It's so sad the way the years pass us by and force us to continue to live, isn't it?" Definitely the evening's mood had changed from very gay to very downhearted, and Rose realized it. Funny the way a happy moment always has a sad one just under the surface, isn't it? She observed. Rose Kennedy then wistfully spoke to Barnes about her own life and about aging. She would turn 80 in a year. "You know, I still feel that I am young and quite attractive," she said. "When I look in the mirror, I see a young woman looking back at me. But then someone shouts out, 'Grandma, Grandma!' And while I know I should love to hear that, I must tell you, I really don't," she confessed. "It makes me feel old. I don't want to feel that way. Can you understand?" After Rose's comments, the two just sat staring at each other until Jackie finally returned. Jackie sat down and smiled softly. "I'm so sorry," she said, reaching out to hold Rose's hand. "I know you hate it when I get this way about Jack." Rose nodded with a sad expression, but without saying anything. About a week after Jackie Kennedy Onassis, Rose Kennedy, and Edward Larrabee Barnes went to see the Broadway show 40 Carats in May of 1969, Jackie and Edward had lunch at Jackie's home. Jackie found Barnes absolutely fascinating. A Harvard graduate, he had founded Edward Larrabee Barnes Associates in Manhattan and went on to a long career designing office buildings, museums, botanical gardens, and college campuses. Among his most famous projects would be the Dallas Museum of Art and the IBM building in Manhattan. In 1969, construction was being completed on two of his pet projects, 28 State Street in Boston and the Indianapolis Museum of Art. Like John Carl Warnecke, the architect who designed JFK's memorial for Jackie and whom she dated on and off before Onassis, Barnes was someone that Jackie could talk to for hours, and she did. They had a long friendship, though it never turned romantic. He was very happily married. In fact, Jackie did have many male friends who were married and with whom she shared a great many common interests. She always thought it reductive of the human condition that there were people who believed that opposite sexes could not have platonic relationships. "Are you happy these days, Jackie?" Edward asked as they waited for Jackie's maid to serve lunch. The two were seated in the parlor on a couch in front of a coffee table, upon which an elegant tea setting had been prepared. Jackie smiled. "My goodness, Ed," she said, while pouring him a cup. "Do you know how many people ask me that question? Almost every day someone asks me that question. Why is that, I wonder?" Edward laughed. He told Jackie that it was likely because she was loved by the world and that it was widely hoped that she was finally happy and at peace, considering what she'd been through in her life. "The whole world wants that for you, Jackie," he said. She nodded. "Well, that's not so bad then, is it?" she decided. In answer to the question, she said that she now had, quote, "a new life," and that she was just trying her best to throw herself into it. "But do you know what I miss?" she asked. "I really miss politics." Edward was surprised to hear this, he said, because he never thought of Jackie as being a particularly political person. She responded by saying that when she and JFK were married, she did hate politics. But now, looking back on those days, she realized that what she really hated was, quote, "politics as a blood sport," she said. "Not the way Kennedys played it, but the way others played it," she clarified, "like Nixon. Oh, I am not a fan of his, I must say," she remarked with a shiver. "You know who I admire most?" she said. "Sergeant Shriver," answering her own question. She then explained that Sarge and Eunice inspired her, quote, "because they believe that the way to fix our country is to fix ourselves. I think that's what politics is supposed to be about, don't you? Fixing things." Edward nodded. "Do you miss being a Kennedy?" he asked. At that, Jackie flashed her infectious smile. "Oh, but I am still a Kennedy," she said brightly. She added that she was absolutely surrounded by Kennedys. "You saw how Rose was the other night at the show. She's like a mother to me, and I know she thinks of me as her daughter." As Jackie's maid served the meal of lemon chicken, the two talked a bit more about Jack and Bobby and what both had meant to America. They were men who honored their principles and values, Jackie said, adding that, quote, "You don't see a lot of that these days. They were connected to the pulse of America in a way that I fear we may not see again." There was a long pause while Jackie gazed into the distance, as if she'd suddenly been hit by a flood of memories. "At times it seems so sad, doesn't it?" she asked. "Here we Kennedys are, all these many years later, trying to pick up the pieces of our lives, trying to survive after Camelot. Clinging to each other with the fear that what little that remains of our kingdom will come crashing down around us, leaving us with nothing but the memory of what was once so great. But the truth is, this can never happen," she concluded, "because the family is the kingdom, and it can never fall, Ed, not ever." In the telling of this story, Edward Larrabee would later recall, years later, that he didn't know how to respond to Jackie's observation. It had been so poignant. However, before he had a chance to do so, she did it herself. "Listen, if I go on like this for even one more minute, I will be depressed for the next 2 weeks," she said, maybe only half joking. "So enough of this. Let's eat." Prior to 1968, John Kennedy Jr.'s greatest male influence had been Secret Service agent Jack Walsh. A funny story has it that once when John was being taunted by some school chums, John wears short shorts, he hauled off and punched one kid right in the nose. When someone asked how he learned to fight like that, he answered, "The Secret Service." Ham Brown, who was executive secretary of the former Agents Association of the Secret Service, said, quote, "Jack automatically became a father figure to John. It's a shame that that's how things had to be, but Jack is a good man and he was happy to do it. He drove John to school and picked him up every day just like a father would. At home, the only people around were women, Mrs. Onassis and all the maids and the servants. Jack was the only man around those children until Onassis came along." Both John Jr. and Caroline seemed to take to Aristotle Onassis when he came into their lives, John more so than Caroline. To Jackie, John had always seemed scattered and unfocused in his day-to-day activities. Though she told him not to worry about his poor spelling, his father's had been atrocious as well, she was concerned. His leg was always jiggling. He seemed nervous, hyperactive. When she looked into it, the diagnosis from doctors came back as a learning behavioral disability. She was very concerned about that language until it was explained to her that the phrase merely meant the boy was hyperactive and was having trouble concentrating and organizing. Some reporters over the years have said that John was diagnosed with ADD, attention deficit disorder, at the age of 5, and some have even said at the age of 3. However, that term really wasn't used until around 1980. The first edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM, in which it appears, is the second edition, published in 1980. It wouldn't be until John was 23, in 1983, that a doctor actually diagnosed him with ADD. It was then that he started taking Ritalin, but on an experimental basis, not consistently. Sometimes the drug made him feel nauseous, and so he often took a break from the medication, only to go back on it later to see if the effects would be the same. When John was a youngster, Onassis was very patient with him, reading him stories, forcing him to slow down, to think before he acted, or as he put it to one of his staff members, "The boy just has too much energy. He needs to stop for a minute and figure out what he wants to do, not just do everything there is to do in a day." I think Caroline was a little more ambivalent than John was about their stepfather, recalled Secret Service agent Clint Hill. It was understandable. After all, she had known her real father much better than John, and her memories of him were still so vivid. She missed him every day. Still, Caroline seemed to genuinely try with Onassis. He made her mother happy, and as little Caroline had said, "It's nice to see her smile so much now rather than cry so much," perhaps recalling having observed her mother's abject sadness in the months after her father was buried. "All she does all day long is lie in bed and cry," Caroline said at the time. Jackie trusted her new husband implicitly with her children and was very pleased that he became a pivotal person in their lives. In fact, Ari had an easy way with the children, and though he was more like a grandfather to them than a father, he would definitely be a strong presence in their lives. Onassis worked hard to win their trust. He promised the children that he was in no way trying to replace their father, and they took him at his word. He found, though, that John's biggest concern was that he was trying to take Jack Walsh's place. There was definitely an adjustment period where Onassis had to sometimes defer to Walsh when it came to spending time with the young Kennedy boy. "Sometimes John just wanted to be with Jack," said another agent who was a friend of Walsh's. Onassis would say, "Let's go and do something," and John would say, "No, I'm fine with Mr. Walsh." One day in the spring of 1969, one Secret Service agent who asked for anonymity accompanied Aristotle Onassis, John, and Caroline on a walk through Central Park. "All of the money in the world can't buy a simple moment like this," Onassis told the agent. "I never had this with my own children," he said. "We have never had this kind of closeness. There's always been problems. So for me, having this time with Jackie's children is vitally important." Onassis had John to his left and was holding his hand. Caroline was to his right, and he was holding her hand as well. The children had never seemed more content, or so the agent would recall many years later. "Aristotle, when I grow up, I want to be rich like you," John said, looking up at his stepfather with great adoration. He and his sister always referred to Onassis by his first name. "That's not much of a goal for you," Onassis told the boy. "You come from a family who helps people. All of your aunts and uncles help people. You should help people too." John nodded and asked, "Like my Aunt Eunice?" Onassis nodded. "But that's why I want to be rich," John said, "so I can have lots and lots of money to help people with." Aristotle Onassis patted young John Kennedy Jr. on the top of the head. "That's my boy," he concluded. "That's my boy." Jackie and the Secret Service. "She was a wonderful lady, a real inspiration to me in many ways," recalled Secret Service agent Clint Hill of Jackie Kennedy Onassis. Hill, as you probably know, was the agent who pulled Jackie from the trunk lid of the car that awful day in Dallas after she had scrambled from her seat to retrieve part of JFK's skull that had been blown away by the assassin's bullet. For many years, he blamed himself for JFK's death, saying that if he had reacted just a little more quickly, he would have taken the third bullet, the most devastating of the three that hit Kennedy. Quote, "And that would have been fine with me," he said. "It's something I have had to learn to live with," he says. "I'm fine now. It took some time, though." He retired in 1975. Clint Hill didn't go to New York with Jackie when she moved there, his place having been taken by Jack Walsh. If it had been just Jack Walsh guarding the children, Jackie would have been quite happy. However, the government had so many agents in the little family's midst that it became a true annoyance for her. Jackie's own protection ended shortly before her marriage to Aristotle Onassis. But as children of the president, her offspring would continue to have guards on duty around them 24 hours a day for many more years. Therefore, there was constant communication and miscommunication over the years between Jackie and the government, as she attempted, usually in vain, to have the protection of her children minimized. The letters she would send outlining her concerns were usually long and very detailed, such as the one she wrote on December 11, 1968, to James J. Rowley, director of the Secret Service. It was 6 typed pages, single-spaced. At the time, Jackie was very upset that 3 more agents had been added to the roster in October after new legislation was passed, a consequence, by the way, of RFK's assassination. This made a total of 8 Secret Service agents guarding 2 children. It seemed preposterous to her. Quote, "The trouble with the Children's Secret Service detail now is the same as when we moved to New York in 1964, she wrote. There are too many agents, and the new ones are not ones who are sensitive to the needs of little children." At this point, the end of 1968, Caroline was 11 and John was 8. Jackie felt strongly that so many agents on duty were throwing their lives into, quote, turmoil, and that they do not care about them or understand their problems. She wanted, quote, 3 young men whom they know and trust, and that was it. Jack Walsh being one of the agents she wanted on duty. She wrote that she could live with the security measures taken in New York and Hyannisport if need be, but that what was going on in Far Hills, New Jersey, where she had a country home, was totally unacceptable. "It's harmful rather than helpful," Jackie wrote. "Agents tramp outside the children's windows all night, talking into their walkie-talkies. Cars of each agent pile up in the driveway so that our little country house looks like a used car lot. And with all this," Jackie complained, "the agents supply the children with no protection." Citing an example, Jackie wrote that the agents on duty lost track of her children for 2 full hours because, quote, they followed a wrong car out of the driveway. She wrote that one of her neighbors, a mother of 9, had to leave her children and bring my children home. She detailed another example of an agent who, quote, forcibly dragged my children home for supper, even though she had told them they could stay at a neighbor's for the meal. She also objected to all the security in Greece, saying that Ari had 75 men to enforce security, and that is quite enough. She wrote, quote, "The children are growing up. They must see new things and travel as their father would have wished them to do. They must be as free as possible, not encumbered by a group of men who will be lost in foreign countries, so that one ends up protecting them rather than vice versa." She concluded by writing, "As the one person in the world who is most interested in their security and who realizes most what threats there are in the outside world, I promise you that I have considered and tried every way, and that what I ask you for is what I know is best for the children of President Kennedy and what he would wish for them." She signed it, "Most sincerely, Jacqueline." The response? Well, it took almost 3 months, but when James Rowley finally did respond, he denied pretty much all of Jackie's requests. In explaining his reasons, he said that the government still received, quote, communications from mentally ill persons who represent a potential threat to your children. He noted that a curious and unwitting public is still very interested in the activities of the Kennedy children. He also wrote of the ever-present threat of the kidnapper, and he added, the incidences of aircraft hijacking were a great concern. He did allow, though, that the agents wouldn't park on her property in New Jersey, that they would park out on the road instead. He also promised to have the agents ease up on walkie-talkie communication outside the children's rooms. Small consolation for her, doubtless, considering the breadth of her complaints. Then, in what Jackie later said she considered hardball, Rowley pointed out that when she was in Ireland a year earlier, she had asked that Jack Walsh not accompany her to the beach. He refused. She wasn't happy about it, but decided to go swimming anyway. She then went out into the churning ocean, got pulled in by an undertow, and very nearly drowned. Luckily, Walsh jumped in and was able to rescue her. Jackie lay on the beach for almost 30 minutes, coughing up all that salt water. She was very grateful, especially since earlier on that same vacation, John had been at a hot dog roast and somehow stumbled and tripped into the hot coals. Walsh pulled him out and saved him from more frightful burns than the second-degree ones he suffered on his arm. Jackie was very happy that Jack Walsh had been with her and the children on that particular trip, but not too happy about the fact that his heroic efforts were now being used as a weapon to deny her requests for less protection. "It's a constant frustration," Jackie wrote to Lady Bird Johnson of the Secret Service detail protecting her children. She wrote, "Truly, I am at my wits' end with it. They will not let the children lead normal lives, or as normal as possible, considering. I guess one could say I am losing faith in the system." Lady Bird wrote back, quote, "I sympathize with you, my dear. We have gone through the same thing with our children. It's not the agents, I'm afraid. It's the reason for their presence. How sad that we as a nation have to go to such lengths. But after what has happened in recent years, I'm afraid we have no choice, do we?" Considering what she herself had been through, Jackie likely agreed. Lady Bird closed her letter with these wise words, quote, "Put your faith in love, and it will carry you through life, no matter what happens and no matter when." A problem like Maria. There was one major problem in Jackie's marriage to Aristotle Onassis, and it was significant enough to cause her many years of extreme anguish. It was Maria Callas. Onassis simply would not stop seeing the famed opera star, and Callas couldn't seem to keep herself away from him either. The affair between the two had begun in 1957, when Ari was still married to his first wife, Tina. Throughout the entire time he was seeing Callas, however, Onassis was also seeing other women. He couldn't even be faithful to the woman with whom he was being unfaithful to his wife, observed Enrique Fontaine, who worked as one of Onassis's assistants from 1966 through the end of 1969. However, that was the Greek way back then, or at least amongst powerful rich men. I believe the affair with Maria was on hold in 1968, but not really over, when Onassis married Jackie, he said. However, within months of the wedding, at around Christmas time actually, Ari and Maria started seeing each other again. Ari did try to defend his carrying on an affair even after he'd wed Jackie. His pride had been hurt in February 1970 when letters from Jackie to Roswell Gilpatrick somehow fell into the hands of an autograph dealer and were made public. One was sent from the Christina during Jackie's honeymoon with Onassis, which was more than he could handle. "Dearest Ross," it began, "I would have told you before I left, but then everything happened so much more quickly than I had planned. I saw somewhere what you'd said, and I was very touched. Dear Ross, I hope you know all you were and are and will ever be to me. With my love, Jackie." The day after the letter ended up in the press, Gilpatrick's wife filed for a legal separation, and Onassis cited his hurt pride as a reason, weak though it might have been, for his ongoing affair behind Jackie's back. Once Jackie knew about Onassis and Callas, she had to make a choice, said her cousin, John Davis. "Do I give him up because he's doing this to me? Because he's never going to stop, and he has made that clear to me? Or do I find a way to live with it?" I think then the reason he had given her so many millions when they married began to make more sense. It gave him power. It gave him license to say he was taking very good care of her and that she should, in turn, just let him do what he pleases. She had gotten herself into a pickle, so to speak. She needed him more than he needed her, and he loved that, and she knew it. So what to do? What to do? In the end, she decided to just accept it, and once she had made up her mind about it, that was the end of it for her. Indeed, for the most part, after May 1970, Jackie didn't want to know any more about Ari's relationship with Maria Callas than absolutely necessary. Rodgers and Hammerstein posed the question in The Sound of Music, how do you solve a problem like Maria? Apparently, for Jackie, the solution was to just ignore the problem as best she could. Because she had looked the other way when Jack Kennedy was unfaithful during her marriage to him, Jackie was certainly accustomed to the notion of the unfaithful husband, noted the writer Gore Vidal. Therefore, it could be said that her coping mechanisms were already in place for such ordeals. Her friend, singer Carly Simon, added that Jackie once told me how deeply hurt she had been by the affairs of her husband. In a rare moment of candor about such things, Jackie told Carly, quote, "After a while, one does turn off." Whenever she told you something personal, she would slip into third-person language, Carly recalled. While in Washington with Kennedy, Jackie immersed herself in the restoration of the White House to take her mind off things, and she did the same while on Scorpios with Onassis. She dealt with both husbands the same way. As long as they were there for her when she needed them to be, Jackie was satisfied, or at least she seemed satisfied. And that is the end of that chapter. Fascinating stuff. And I think I'm going to stop there because I've been going for about an hour and the storms are picking up again outside. We're getting a lot of lightning, and maybe I shouldn't be sitting here on a computer with a lightning storm outdoors. So I think I'm going to call this a day, and we will come back with a little more on Sergeant Shriver and the next time that he made a stab at running for the presidency in 1972 and 1976. This poor guy just couldn't catch a break. It's a really interesting story, so I hope you'll join us on the next episode of The Kennedys After Camelot. Until then, I'm Lori Spencer. Thanks for listening.